Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to upload an attachment in Microsoft Teams bot, such as PDF or Word. Then we'll send those attachments to Azure Blob Storage, trigger our Azure function for the indexing process that will read the attachment using Form Recognizer or Azure Document Intelligence. Then we'll chunk it down, we'll index those documents. Then we'll index those chunks in Azure AI Search. And finally, we'll let user ask questions from those documents. So this will be a very detailed and very informative as well as very complex implementation. So I suggest you stay tuned. Let's start. In our last video, we uploaded an image attachment and we asked Azure GPT-4o for processing the image. Basically, we can ask any questions on the image that we uploaded. For example, we uploaded an image and we asked a question, what is the name of the cover? So GPT-4o responded with an answer. All right. Well, we already did half of the implementation in our previous video earlier. So I'm talking about this particular video. Upload file in Microsoft Teams bot and send to Azure Blob Storage. So we'll be following exact same. Basically, we'll be copy pasting most of the code from this particular implementation. And then we'll follow ahead for indexing. All right. So let's start. This is a repository that we created in that particular video. There, we ask the user to upload the attachment by sending an attachment prompt. Then we followed all rest of the all process. All right, so let's continue. I'll go to the main dialog. As in the last video, I discussed one of the important condition. Let's suppose if the attachment is an image, then we'll be calling this process image dialog so that GPT-4o can process the image and describe the image or respond based on the question that we gave along with that image. Well, one condition that we would like to implement here is a file extension. If it is an image, then we'll send it to process image. Else, for all the other file types, we'll send it to another child dialog. So let's create one. I'll name this as process knowledge base doc. I'll just make it really short. Knowledge base KB process KB dialog. Okay, and this will inherit from component dialog. Okay, next. Coming back here, we'll get the file extension. I think we should get it inside this condition. All right. So I'll go to process image dialog, get some of the code from here, such as getting the attachment and file download info. First, let's get the file because this is what we need. Let me just get rid of this statement. Get the file. All right. We got the file extension. Perfect. If it is JPEG or PNG file, I'll call the process image dialog. Else if we can also support JSON files as well, or even Excel with a predefined format. But as of now, we'll only focus on PDF as well as Word document. Most precisely, we'll focus only on PDF. For Word, we might have to implement little bit extra, but in this video, we'll only focus on the PDF document. Else, else we'll send this particular response. I'm sorry, I can't process this file type. All right. And after processing this, we'll have to move next. Okay. Now, coming to process KB dialog, let's import some of the packages. Wait a second. What was the shortcut for that? Well, it did something. I don't remember what combination I have clicked on my keyboard to get a comment. Anyway, that's fine. Let's get rid of intro step. I think we don't need three different steps. This will be a similar implementation as that of process image dialog. So we just need one step. Okay. Let's copy some of the code from here. So we'll copy as it is all of it. We also need client factory and blob storage helper. We do not have blob storage helper in our project. So let's create one. So I'll be creating that here under storage, under services project. So I'll name this as blob storage helper. Do I have an interface as well? Yes, I do have an interface. Let's create an interface as well. Next, we'll copy the contents of blob storage helper from our attachment upload project. So I'll copy as it is. It requires a blob service client that will authenticate in our dependency injection. So let's first install the NuGet package. So this has two methods. One, getting the blob container. If it doesn't exist, then it will create a new one. So on the return type, it return backs the blob container client. Once we have the blob container client, we get the blob client, and then we upload the file to that blob container and finally get the URI of it. And this URI will send it to our Azure function so that it can read that and follow along the process of indexing. Okay, so I'll move back to process KB dialog. Now let's import this. Coming back to program.cs. Here let's add that blob storage helper. All right, so far so good. Coming back here, we need temp folder, user folder, creates a user folder using the AD object ID. This we already discussed, then download it to the local storage and then upload it to the blob storage. Here we are sending the reply to the chat window by sending a blob URI. And we are mentioning this particular message that file is received and saved. Okay. And finally, we are deleting the file. So this is the process that we are following. In order for this to work, the blob service client, we need to authenticate and create a new client in our dependency injection. So I'll copy this particular piece of code, Azure client. So I'll go to program.cs file and create a new client. For this, I need to install Azure extension. So let's install that. I'll need to get the exact name from here. So the name is Microsoft Extensions Azure. There are multiple ways where you can authenticate with the blob service client. The easiest way would be to use the connection string. Another way, authenticate without connection string, either using your CLI credential or Visual Studio authentication. And once it is deployed to Azure, you can use managed identity for the authentication. For simplicity purpose, I'm using the connection string. So I'll need to pass on this storage account connection string in my app settings.json. Let's get the connection string from the storage account. I'm here on the storage account, go to access keys and copy the connection string. By the way, I have moved all the settings from app settings.json to secrets.json. So that it is not part of my source control or GitHub. Even after this particular video, behind the scene, I'll move this particular setting to secrets.json file. All right, so coming back here, I also need Azure default settings. So let me get them from here. Okay, perfect. Next thing, let's go to process KB dialog again. So after I upload the file to the blob storage, let's see what happens. I think this we already discussed. We get the blob URI. And yeah, so for now, let's test this out, whether this will work or not. Add step. Okay, it doesn't have a return type. So let's add one. End dialog. Okay, so let's see. Okay, one more thing. I'll need to add this process KB dialog in the constructor of main dialog. Okay, it requires client factory as of now, and also it requires blob storage helper. Let me double check. Yes, let's add blob storage helper. Okay, since I'll be passing directly to my dialog class, so I don't need to initialize. So I'll just pass it directly. Blob storage helper. Okay, now we can run it. Coming back here, let's say hi to the bot. Okay, hello, how can I help you today? Okay, let's attach some file. I doubt I have some file with me. Actually, I need to get some file. I think I have one file from here. Let's save it in desktop. Yeah, quantum computing. This is our old document that we have used in almost all our videos. So I'll be using the same document. Perfect. Now, let's upload this document. Document 1. Let's see ngrok if the process is running. No. So I think we have the similar issue that we faced in our last video, where as soon as I upload the document, the request gets completed immediately. I think the reason what I found is as soon as I make any changes to app settings.json, then this is happening. So if I just clean solution and restart it again, then this resolved the issue yesterday. Let's double check now. So I'll say hi again. This time let's ask ChatGPT just to double check if my ChatGPT is working fine. Okay, it's there. Now let's upload the document again. So let's see. Nope, it's not working. Well, this issue, it might be something related to Teams or just the attachment. I'm not sure because this is very frequent. I'll upload the document again. Okay. So if I debug it, then it's stopping it here. And if I just stop debugging and rerun without debugging, then it will work. This is the exactly same process that happened yesterday. Anyway, let's see. So we are getting the file, we are getting the file extension, PDF. So it will come inside process KB dialog. And yeah, that's all. Let's see if I have received the message. Perfect. So I have the URI here and received and saved. So this is working. This we have already seen in our previous tutorials. Let's double check in our blob storage. So I'll go to the storage browser, blob containers. So it created a container with my AD object ID, and inside that container, it has uploaded the file. Perfect. Now, coming to the next part, once the container have the file there, we can trigger our Azure function and index all the documents that are part of the container. So this is one option, either indexing all documents again. Another option, incremental indexing. So if I have a new document, I'll only update my existing index by adding more chunks to it. So it doesn't require deleting my index and recreating it with a new set of chunks. So I'll be doing incremental update. Okay, so let's see. So I think incremental update will make much more sense. Yeah. So for that purpose, I'll need to create my Azure function. So let's do that. Create new project. Let's search for function app. The project name is teams gpt.function. Okay. The function trigger will be, I can use HTTP trigger as well. As soon as I have the documents uploaded to blob storage, I can make an API call to my function by passing the inputs such as the blob URI, so that the function app can download the document, then index it, basically do the chunking and then index it. Otherwise, I can use the blob storage, the blob trigger. So as soon as I have some files in the blob container, this particular function will be triggered and it will just start the process of indexing. So I think let's pick up the blob trigger for now. So connection string setting name. So this setting name, basically it's a property you need to enter here. And this property also you need to enter in your local settings.json. So once the project is created, this particular property will be part of your project where you keep all your configuration. It's similar to your app settings.json. It's exactly same, just the name change. Here it is called local settings. Okay. Yeah. Connection string setting name will be blob storage connection string. And this path is where the container is. Basically, it's the path of the container, so it has to be a dynamic one. Okay. I can also do in one more way. I can give it a path like files. Inside files, I can create a new subdirectory. Let me show you how what I'm thinking right now. So I'll create one container with the name files. Inside files, I'll have a directory with the name of my AD object ID. Inside that directory, I'll have the files uploaded so that the container name, I can mention it here under path. But for now, let's see. Let me check this out. I'll keep it as it is for now. We'll change it later. Okay. So it requires, since you're developing on local machine, it requires Azure AI running on your local server. So I'll just choose this option. If you do not have Azure AI installed, this will throw an error. So container with open source emulator that provides a local environment for testing Azure Blob and Queue storage applications. Cloud storage that is highly available, secure. So I think let's pick up this one. Okay, RGGPT. This is the storage account that I'm targeting. Local user secrets file. Perfect. And finish. Close. Okay. So blob storage connection string. So I'll go to my local settings. Okay, it's not here. It will be part of secrets.json. So I'll go here, manage user secrets. So there it is. So this is my connection string. And what else it has? Blob endpoint, table endpoint, queue endpoint. So yeah, it gets a lot of things here. That's fine. So I'll right click, rename indexing function. Perfect. Now let me think over this one, blob trigger. So this has to be a dynamic, right? So I'll make this as dynamic. So blob container. So name will be the container name. So let's make that as, I think let's keep the name only. Okay. All right. So let's see. As I was thinking now to make it really short and do not worry about the complexity of tracking the container and inside that those files. So what happens? Azure Blob Storage keeps track of all the activities or events that has happened inside a container. And if since I'm developing this, I'll need to restart this process again and again. And I might also face some of the bugs as well in between. So this will take me more time in development because I'll have to go to my storage account, delete those events, come back here, restart the function app, and test it again. So I believe let's make this as HTTP trigger. That will make little more sense. So I'll just delete this and right click on the project, click on add, new Azure function. I'll name this as indexing function, add, and I'll choose HTTP trigger and authorization level function. Click on add. Okay. And let's make this as only post request. I'll be passing the container name from my bot framework application to this function application. Okay. For the time being, let me test this out. If the function app is running fine, so I'll right click on the function app, debug, start without debugging. I'm just checking if it is working fine. I'll copy the endpoint, go to Postman. All right. So let's send the request. Welcome to Azure function. And if I open the command line interface, and there it is, executed function, and we also have a logger message. And in the Postman, we have a response. Welcome to Azure function. So this is coming from here. So we know that our indexing function is working fine. So it's time for us to implement this further. So I'm going to take certain inputs from, so I'm going to parse this request body so that I can retrieve the container name that I'm passing from the chatbot application. To do that, I'm going to need a model class. Let's create a folder here inside this project, models. Let's name this as indexing function request. Or better would be to not create it here. Let's use the common folder. The reason being, I can use the same model class while sending the request and also use the same model class by parsing the request inside my function app. Let's call this as function and move this file here. Let's delete it from here. So even the namespace will change. It's models dot function. So I just have only one property. The name is container name. Perfect. Back to my function app. Let me just get rid of all this for now. Okay, so let's write some statements here. Logger received a new request, received a request to index a document. That's good. Get the request body. Okay, let's add the dependencies, add project reference. In our case, we are referencing to models project. Now I can just use the function model. Okay, so I have the request. Check if request is valid. Okay, invalid request, container name is missing, bad request. Perfect. Next, index the document. Let's indexing document in container, return back. Okay, all right. So this is a to do. I just wrote a logger. Okay, let's test this particular implementation for now. So I'll be passing a request body, and inside request body, I have one property, container name, and we are checking if container name is there or not. If it is not there, we are sending bad request. If it is there, then we are just logging it and responding back with OK. All right, so let me just close this command line tool. And this time, for the time being, I'll make a GPT function as a starter project because currently I do not have any work in the bot framework project. Now, most of my time will be on this function app. Let's go to Postman, body. I'm just giving some random value, send. It is responding with 200 OK. Let's see the command line. Received a request to index a document, indexing document in container JDBots, and function executed. So this seems to be working fine. I have my inputs coming into the Azure function. Okay, at least we received a container name, so that is what we wanted. Coming back, I think first of all, okay, let what we'll do, we'll not go to GPT bot as of now. We'll not call this function app from there. First, let's implement the whole indexing process. And I believe I will be using the similar implementation from one of our tutorials. So this is the one I'll be following, complete indexing data tutorial for full text keyword in Azure AI Search. So I'll be following the similar guidelines. Basically, most of the code will be similar to this. There also we developed an Azure function and we indexed our documents. It was an Excel file, or I think it was a JSON. I don't remember that. But yeah, we'll be following most of the stuff here. If you want to go into detailed indexing, then I suggest you watch this getting started tutorial. It's 2 hours 20 minutes long, so it's very detailed one. So I advise you first you watch that, understand the indexing process, and then come back here so that we'll move one step ahead by creating the index using the hybrid search, that is vector plus semantic. Okay, all the Azure AI search related I have already like taught in my previous video. One such video is this one, and even all one most of the green ones uses Azure AI search, so you can watch them for your more better understanding on Azure AI search. Okay, coming back here, let's continue. In my services project, let me create one more folder function. I'll name this as indexing helper. And also I'll need to add them to dependency injections, that is dependency injection of the function. So here I'll need to add them. I'm just updating some of the dependencies of my Azure function. So I'll just select them all, update. Well, most of the dependencies are not required with respect to Azure storage account. And let's install document intelligence, that is form recognizer. I'll go to the program.cs file and let me show you what changes I have made. In the configure services, I added one more host context to retrieve the configuration, to read the configuration data. And I have added the Azure clients. It's a similar implementation that we did in our GPT bot project for the blob service client. This is exactly same. And here we can add multiple Azure clients. That's the power of Azure add Azure client method. Okay, then we need search index client and Azure OpenAI client. So let's install them too. Let me install Azure OpenAI, and I'll need to choose it as a pre-release because Azure OpenAI is pre-release. Azure OpenAI is not available as GA. Okay, and what else we have? Azure Search. This is the one. This I don't need pre-release. I'll use the latest version. Okay, coming back here, add Azure, add OpenAI client. Why does it not recognize that? Is it removed from dependency injection or not? Add. I don't see it here. I also installed the package. Let me double check. Installed. Yeah, I do have the package with me. Most probably it is being removed. So not an issue because we already authenticated in our OpenAI helper. So we don't need it here. Okay. So we can get rid of this statement. Okay. Coming back to the secrets of these. First of all, we need storage account connection string. I'll do right click, manage secrets. Let me just get rid of it, all the secrets from here. For the time being, I'll put them under local settings.json under values. Next setting I need form recognizer endpoint. And form recognizer API key. Next one is Azure Search endpoint. And Azure Search API key. Let me use this name here. Okay. So let's fill these values. The storage account connection string, I can get it from my app settings.json file from my bot project. Let's fill this up. I'm here on the Azure portal. So let me just put the search endpoint and search key first. Then we'll go to the form recognizer. So I'll get the admin key. Next, I need an endpoint. This is available on the overview page here. Next, I need form recognizer. Let's create the resource. The new name is document intelligence, but I prefer form recognizer as a name. Okay, so let's create this. Form recognizer Azure GPT bot. Remember, if you use free plan, then it only allows you to read the first two pages of each document. So if you have multiple documents and you want to read all at once, then it will only read first two pages of each document. Okay, so I'll go with the standard plan. And also, it's a very costly resource. If you have a huge document, let's say 300 pages, then you'll get a huge bill. If you're a big organization, then it shouldn't matter for you. But if you're a developer who is learning for the first time, just make sure you'll get a bill. You cross-check the pricing of Azure Form Recognizer from the pricing page of Azure Product Services. So, and then you take care of that. I prefer you start with the free plan first. So form recognizer deployment is complete. So what all properties we need? We need an endpoint and key. Endpoint, I can get it from the overview page. Coming back to the keys. Let's copy one key, paste it here. Okay. Now we successfully authenticated. We haven't tested yet, but we did all the configuration. Our dependency injection is also ready. Coming back to indexing helper class, let's do some stuff here. Okay, so I just added logger. I'll move back to my indexing function. Let's, after this, let me, first let me call the indexing helper here. Private read-only indexing helper. Next, I can call a method from here. Let's say indexing helper index document async. That's my method name. And I'm passing container name as my parameter to my function. There it is, string container name. Perfect. Now let's start the implementation. For performing all the Azure AI search related operations, I also need a search helper. So let me put it inside cognitive. Let's name this as search helper. And let's add that to program.cs file over here. And in my indexing helper, let's add search helper here. I also need a blob storage helper. All right, this is fine. Okay, we created our indexing helper class. Here we'll write some statements to index documents. The first thing that we will write is, I think Copilot is giving us the right choice, but before that, we'll write some statements. Log information. Okay, let me first get rid of these statements written by Copilot, and I just written a logger indexing documents in container, and we are giving the container name. Next, we'll get the temp folder. This will get me the temp folder. What we'll do, the container that we have received from our bot framework API call, currently we have not integrated that. So the container name that we have received from there will download all the files from that container to our temporary folder on our local machine. When you deploy this application to Azure portal, it will be the temporary path of the Azure function storage. Currently, we are saving all the files from the container to our local directory. Next, let's get all the documents. And this will take container name as the input, and also it will take temporary folder path. Let's create this particular method, quick action and refactoring generate method. Let's go to that method, right click, go to implementation. Okay, yeah, I think okay, we have an interface, so it is available under interface. So we'll have to go to blob storage helper to implement this particular method. And here I should have an error message. Currently it's not coming, so I'll go to I blob storage helper. There it is, get all blobs from container. We'll need a model class that will allow me to save everything inside this. So we'll perform multiple operations in this particular method, that is get all blobs from container. Instead of this, we'll rename this to read all blobs from container. The reason being, we'll call the form recognizer from here itself so that it will get us all the data that we need, and it will also store that into our model class. To do that, we need a model class. So let's go to models project and right click on function, add a new class. We'll name this class as document index. Okay. Let me mention the properties that we need as part of our index. And this is the place where we mention that. So the first property we need is ID. Next, we need title. Even content also we need. Next is content. And finally, the URL. So these four properties we need, and will be once we read the data from form recognizer, we'll store all those data into these properties as a list document index. Coming back to indexing helper, no. First, we need to go to blob storage helper. Let's add the return type as list of document index. Now we can hover over this and implement the method. Read all blobs from container. Perfect. Let's add an async. I was thinking that some of the implementation that we are doing, which are part of the Teams bot, and some of them are part of the function application. And we are doing it everything in a common service class. Well, some of the things will not matter to each other, a bot or a function app. So, what I was thinking, why not we divide it, like create a separate blob storage helper for our bot application as well as for our function app. Since we came this far, um, I don't think so that's the right choice as of now. But yeah, I'll divide this. I'll divide the document intelligence functionality to a separate class file. So let's do that. So I'll go to cognitive again, add a class, and I'll name this as form recognizer helper. Next, we need document intelligence client that we already added in function app. So let me double check here. Document analysis client, that is what we need here. Let's install that. To do that, let me get to the function app, get the package name that is Azure AI Form Recognizer, go to services dependencies, manage NuGet package, and here let's install Form Recognizer. Coming back to Form Recognizer helper, now let's import the package. All right. Going back to blob storage helper, the first thing that we need is a blob container client. I think it has given the right piece of code. Okay, so the first thing that we need is a blob container client by passing the container name. We already have a method that creates the container if it not exists, or it gets the container client for me. Next, we are creating a list of document index object. We are iterating over all the blob items from the container. Then we get the blob information. We generate the file path and we download to that local file path. After downloading this, we need to get the blob content so that we can save it in our document index. To do that, we'll call form recognizer helper, and we need that form recognizer helper over here. So let's call form recognizer helper dot get blob content. Okay, async. And it needs a file path. So let's create a method out of this. So I'll go to form recognizer helper. We have a method here, and the return type will be, we'll decide this later, what should be the return type. I'll copy some of the code from the documentation that allows me to read the file using a local path. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm opening the file for reading. Next, I'm passing that stream to document analysis client, and I'm using the pre-built read model. I'm creating a text, the string builder, that will keep on appending the content of read content of that file into my property full text builder. And finally, I'm returning this. So this code is from the documentation itself. You can have a look at the documentation of form recognizer. All right, since I'm returning back the read content from my document, so I'll move back to blob storage helper, and I got the content. I'll store that into document index. So let's do that. ID will generate it later. Let's title blob item.name. Content is blob content, and URL is absolute URL of the blob client. Okay. Once that is done, we'll delete the file, and that is all. And we'll return back the document index. All right. So moving back to indexing helper from where we started from. Okay. So that was read all blobs from container. Okay. Now next task. Next, we'll chunk our document down. If it is large enough, we'll chunk it down to certain number of tokens per paragraph or per chunk. So to do that, we'll create a new temporary document index. Then we'll iterate over our documents. Okay, let me just get rid of this statement for now. So we are iterating over all the documents. Next, I'm getting some implementation from Semantic kernel documentation that is allowing me to chunk the document. So I'll write it here. Text chunker. And text chunker is part of Semantic kernel. So we'll need to install that. So I'll go to dependencies, Semantic kernel. Do I have it here somewhere? Let me get the package name, that is Microsoft.semantic kernel. Let's install that. Go to indexing helper. Let's import this package. So you'll get this warning message. Microsoft Semantic Kernel text chunker is for evaluation purpose only and is subject to change or removal in future updates. So to do that, we need to suppress this particular warning by adding these statements. Okay, I think, is there anything changed? The warning. Okay, I think the ID of that warning is changed. Since we got the method for our chunking documents, well, it takes content and max tokens per paragraph, how much you need. You can overwrite this particular number. Currently, it is set as 1000 as default. And tokens overlap, I am keeping as 100. Again, it can be overridden. So I'll just mention as paragraphs. Okay. So let's check if paragraph equals to null. Let's change this condition. If paragraph is not equals to null and paragraphs contains some element, then I think this is exactly what I need, but I don't need to pass an else condition. Okay, so temp document indexes dot add new document index. We have title, we have content, we have URL, and finally we have ID. ID will create it. So let's say, yeah, GUID dot new GUID. So let's create that as an ID. After this is done, I'll change the data type of my document to index. So I'll use this particular data type, that is list of dictionary of string and object. So I'm converting the list of document index to list of dictionary and string object. And this is my temporary document indexes. And this is URL. All right, so I have ID, content, title, URL. Now I'll perform the actual operation of indexing. And that I'll call my search helper to do that. Let's create a method. Perfect. I was thinking the one thing that we also need is the index name. And index name, I'm thinking, I think the best one would be AD object ID that I'm getting from bot project to my function app using an API call. So let's add one more parameter here, container name. So from where I'm calling this, I'll go here and I'm pass the container name as well. Okay, going back to search helper. Here we need some properties, some clients. The first client that we need is search index helper. I think search index client is the name. And we need to install the package that is search documents. So go to NuGet package manager, search for Azure Search documents and install it. Now we can import this one. The next client we need, or we can say helper class, OpenAI helper. OpenAI helper, we need it for embedding purpose. To get a search client, we need a method to get a search client from the search index client, and it takes an input of index name. There are few statements that I'll copy paste here. One thing is we'll not do incremental indexing. The reason being, to do incremental indexing, we have to know what file is uploaded by the user, and based on that file, we'll perform the indexing, incremental indexing. Since we are passing only the container name to our function application, and we are downloading all the files and reading it and then chunking it down, so that means we are doing it all files at a time. So we'll have to delete our index and re-index it. Well, in your organization, it can be re-index or it can be incremental index. It's up to you what use case you want to perform. For incremental index, you need to just delete this statement and continue ahead. That's all. And I'll tell you how you can do incremental index. So as soon as bot framework uploads a document, you make an API call to a function app. Currently, we are passing the container name, but you can also pass the blob name along with that, so that you come to know that what file is uploaded by the user. And based on that file, you can just download only that particular file inside your function application. So let me show you the place where you are downloading the file. So this is the place. So here container name, you will pass one more property, the blob name, and here you'll put a condition if blob name is matching that particular blob name or not. Once it is matching, then only you download the file, so that you only have one file to download, and then you only have one file to index. Okay, so this is how you can perform the incremental indexing. All right, so next, so I wrote few statements here. One is get sample index. I copied this implementation from the documentation, where it allows me to index the document, basically create the index schema for me. So this method will have the schema for me. Then I'll delete the index, existing index if it exists. And now I'm creating or updating the index with the latest schema. And finally, I'll create the vector embeddings and I'll upload the index or document in batches. All right. So let's implement these methods. So this one is document to index. All right. So I'll go to the sample index. So these all implementation, these all properties are from the documentation. So where we have this HNSW profile, KNN profile. If you are a machine learning expert, then you might know what this all means. And even the model dimension, you might know what it means. All right. Since I'm on the latest version of Azure Search documents, then Some of the properties might not work for me, so I'll have to update them. I think let's go to Azure Search documentation, go to resources, then documentation, quick start. Since we are doing vector plus semantic search, that's hybrid search we are doing. So let's see where we can find that. Index any data, samples, how to guides, hybrid search. Best, I think I'll go to the samples and I need SDK samples here. .NET indexer. There was one link at the top. I remember the last time. I think let me first go to this GitHub repository and using semantic hybrid query using vectorize. I think this is the one. Okay, so this was last updated when? 2 weeks ago. All right, there is no vectorizer here. So vectorizer is helpful during the querying purpose. So before sending your query to Azure AI Search, it will just create embedding and then search. Otherwise, you will do the other way around. You have to create your embedding and then search. So vectorizer has that particular functionality that we implemented here. So vector search profile allows you to create the embedding by Azure AI Search and then you do the search inside Azure AI Search. But I don't see that here. Vector search profile, vector search profile, vector search profile name, vector search HNSW config. Where's the vectorizer? I found the sample where I got that piece of code. This is the one. And as I can see, I remember it now. So the version is 11.60 beta 1. So that's the version I need to install. So let's go ahead. And here I'll go to dependencies. I'll select the pre-release version. So earlier it was beta 1, now it's beta 4. Let's update to the latest one. Okay, now it should have the vectorizer property, I believe. Yes, now the error is gone. All right, coming back here. Okay, vectorizers need these three configuration: OpenAI endpoint, OpenAI API key, OpenAI embedding deployable model. So as I said earlier, vectorizers have the capability of embedding your search query and then search inside the index and return back the response. So in the normal search scenario, how you would search in a search index, you'll first check the user query, create the embedding by yourself, and then search that embedding against the Azure AI search index. So the vectorizers will do that job for you. All right. So I need configuration here. Let's do that. So let me add private read-only configuration. Okay, I need to make sure that these properties are there in my app settings.json file. One is OpenAI endpoint, OpenAI API key, and OpenAI embedding deployment model. So I think this is not there. First, let me initialize that. Okay, so it has to be part of my local settings.json. Um, okay, let's do that. Okay, in here I do not have any OpenAI property, so I'll need to add them all here. OpenAI endpoint, let's add that. And OpenAI API key. Okay, let me initialize these properties now. I'll go to the Azure OpenAI Studio and get the embedding model name. Or I can just use the latest model because I believe embedding has a large model as well, text embedding 3 large. Let's try to use something new, and it is part of the standard deployment. Let's make that 350,000 tokens. All right, so I'll use the latest model. Okay, now let me get the OpenAI endpoint and OpenAI API key. Okay, I added these properties and initialized them into my local settings.json and also put the values of it. Next, semantic search configuration. Make sure your semantic search is enabled, or if you want to do it in the runtime, that is also possible. But before that, let me change it. URL, this is correct. Yeah. So let me double check my semantic search configuration. So I'll go to search resource. You can also enable this semantic search using an API call. Okay, it's selected plan. Perfect. I have selected the free plan. Currently, I'll not have any indexes. Once we run our function app, then we'll see some indexes here. Okay, so that is all under sample index. Let's move back. Delete index, that's the function or method of search index client that will do the job. Even create an index, update index, it will just update it with the latest schema that we defined under get sample index. Next is create vector embedding. This is important. Okay. Here we have included the retry logic as well because creating the embedding may have the token limit exception. Many times it can occur. So we have written the retry logic as well. Okay. So processing document, generate embedding with retry. So I'll go here and we are using poly for that for retry logic. So let's install this package and generate embedding async. So this particular method does the actual job. Okay, so we need to call OpenAI helper to do that. Let's create that method here under OpenAI helper. All right, so here we'll write this one. Okay. Again, we are using OpenAI SDK for embedding purpose. Open AI client. Okay, we do not have that Open AI client with us. We need to create one. Okay, the name is Azure client. Azure OpenAI client. Okay, the name is Azure client. Let's use that. Okay, in the latest version, many things are changed. So even this implementation needs update. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go to Azure OpenAI documentation. I'll go to the NuGet package because that will have the latest implementation. Authenticate the client. This we already did. Examples, get chat completion, streaming, function calling. What else we have? Use your own data, assistants. I don't see embedding here. Where else I can find the latest code? Here. Yeah, I remember that. I'll go to the source repository. There also under test cases, we have some examples. So I'll go to samples, I guess. Oh, okay, it's the parent repository. We need to find that SDK first. Then let's control F, OpenAI. There it is. Open Azure OpenAI test cases. This is beta 1, beta 2. Okay. We need embedding test. This is the one we need. Perfect, perfect. This is the latest implementation. What is test client here? Embedding client equals to get test client. From where that is coming from? Hmm, can create client, get test client is of. Okay, let's get test client. Hmm. Okay, first we need to create an embedding client, that is for sure. So let's try creating that. Okay. Wait a second, embeddings option. Okay, before that, let's create an embedding client. How do we create the embedding client? Let's see. And what property it needs? It needs model name and OpenAI client options. That's okay. It needs a model name actually. I'm just doing some experiments here. Here I have the client ready. Next, it requires embedding result. What's the difference between them? Creates an embedding vector representing the input text. Creates embedding representing the input text. What does this both mean? Generate embedding and generate embeddings. So there's two different methods here. So this one is using and generate embedding. So let's use that. Okay, embedding result, client, generate embedding, and this goes our sample text. All right, so I can just get rid of this statement. Next, response. How do we get the response? Embedding result. This is the one that is getting me response. Let me double check. Embedding result dot value dot vector. So the response will be part of vector, and vector is not an array. It has to be an array. Yeah. Okay. The embedding vector, which is a list of floats, read only memory float. Cannot implicitly convert type. Okay. To array. Perfect. I hope this works. All right. So if it having some exception, then what it will do, it will just return a blank array. All right. Okay, that was something new. Going back to search helper. Okay, so that will execute the query. That's fine. Going back to our list of steps that we have it here. Create vector embeddings. That's done. Then finally, upload documents in batches. And we are sending the document in a batch of 50. All right. Well, we don't have a huge document, so it will just be very quick. The first thing, okay, there is something reference detected package downgrade. Okay, I'll go to function and upgrade the package. Okay, that should have removed the error now. Now let's run this and see if we have any issues, errors, bugs. Okay, we have something missing. Okay, this suppress warning, I think we have to go to the documentation to check this out. Semantic kernel. Go to .NET. Samples. This also got changed. Let's go to demos. Nope, not here. Concepts. I guess here only. Control F. Chunk. Text chunker. Chunking and embedding. Okay, that's a new package, I guess. Text chunker.split plain text lines. Am I using the same method? Let's double check. Split plain text lines. Yes, I'm using that. So I'll need to suppress this warning. That's the only way to get rid of this warning. So let's hover over this one. And what is the warning? P0050. There it is. I think the warning, this ID is changed. Okay. Wait a second. I'll copy the same thing here. Similarly, I'll copy this below suppress warning here. All right, so that solves my issue, but we need to do a lot here now. What else we created? We created form recognizer helper. Okay, let's see. We'll have many dependency injection issues now. Oh, wow. Perfect. I think dependency injection issues will be there in the bot project because we are using the common service classes. All right, so container name, and this has to be my AD object ID. I'm here under my storage account. I'll go to the blob container where we uploaded the document. I'll copy the container name and paste it here and just run it and let's see. Oh, we do have dependency injection errors. All right, let's try to fix them one by one. Okay, value cannot be null. Okay, and from where that is coming from? OpenAI helper line number 36. OpenAI helper line number 36. Hmm. Okay, I remember. The reason being, since we are using common service classes, uh, the other the function application also should match these. Okay, so let's do that. Let me change these names first. So it will be OpenAI endpoint, OpenAI API key. Since I'm changing it here, even I need to update them in the bot project as well. Okay, let's run it again. It won't run. I need to close my CLI. Okay, that's good. Coming back here, rerun it. Okay, now, okay, I do have some errors again. Let's check this out from the start. Indexing document in container, that's good. Request error response 40, the specified container already exists, I know. And that's form recognizer responses. Hmm. Okay, that's index not found. Okay, indexing function, the request is invalid. Error in vectorizer, my OpenAI vectorizer model name parameter is required in API version. Error in vector, my OpenAI vectorizer model name parameter is required. Okay, the request is invalid. Error in vectorizer. Okay, this model name parameter is required. All right, let's see where is that error coming from. Line number 38. Indexing helper. Wait a second. Search helper, line number 43. Yeah, search helper, line number 43. Create or update index. Okay, so the issue is here under get sample index. So I think the latest version requires one more property, I guess. Model name is required. I believe it will be here somewhere. There it is, model name and OpenAI embedding model name. Okay, let me hover over this one. The name of the embedding model that is deployed at the provided deployment ID path. So I'll copy this here to here. The ID of the Azure OpenAI model deployment on the designated resource. Strange. Okay, let's try this again. I need to close the CLI. Let's run it again. Oh, I got 200. Okay, perfect. But why this error? Failed to generate embedding for text while quantum computing hold. Failed to generate invalid request error. Invalid API key. You can find your API key at FFEC. Just a second. 75DA. Why does it point to platform.openai.com? Am I using a different method here? Processing, start embedding, uploading documents. Okay. That's the new feature, I guess, embedding client. So it was also taking Azure OpenAI options as well, where I had to pass the endpoint. Okay, but before that, let's double check if something is uploaded. Okay, I have it here. Search. I have two documents, but nothing is here. Let's check the fields first. ID, title, content, URL, vector. We do have semantic configuration. That's correct. Vector profiles. Vectorizer also we have. And vectorizer should contain, yep, API key. Okay, this all good. I believe it was not able to index. I believe that's the reason. Let's go back to embedding client. This happens when the version changes and it's not stable. So all this happens. Open AI client options. I think I found what was missing. I could have got the embedding client directly from the Azure client that we have it here. So this is a statement that I modified. Well, it was pointing to platform.openai.com, but we wanted it to point to Azure OpenAI. So let's test this again. Let's see if we have the data now in our indexing. There it is. Oh, something is wrong again. Failed to upload badge. The request is invalid. There's a mismatch in vector dimensions. The vector field with dimension of expects a length of 1536. However, the provided following documentation. Okay, there's a mismatch in vector. The vector field vector with dimension of 15 expects a length of has a length of 3072. Please ensure that the vector length matches the expected length of the vector field. Okay, that's a new error which never came earlier. At all places, the dimension is 1536 itself. I got past that particular error where it was saying that the length of vector should match the dimension. So, since it is the continuous development of the Azure OpenAI client libraries, so this will happen. So, I just randomly added the embedding generation options and I found that dimension property is part of it. So, there are two places you need to add dimensions now. The first is in the search helper. While creating the search index, you need to add that dimension. And the second place you need to add is while creating the embedding. So this solved my problem and I was able to successfully create my index and then I get the 200 OK and here I have the data. So I have two documents here. So this is how it looks like. The randomly generated GUID as the ID, title as the name of the document, and the content, it's the chunk. So it divided into two chunks. Okay. So this is all now for the indexing part. Now the final piece that is pending is calling this particular function app from my bot framework project. So to do that, let's right click on solution, properties. I'll make both the project as the starter project. That is my bot project and function app. Okay. Now, coming to the bot project, I also need to modify a few things. That is changing the dependency injection. So let's do that. Go to program, storage account connection string. Even this has to be the same name as that of program.cs. Let's see. Okay, I think this can be different. That is fine. But OpenAI, that needs to be same. So I'll go there, right click, manage user secrets. And this name needs to be matched with local settings.json keys. So OpenAI endpoint. OpenAI API key. and OpenAI chat deployment model. All right. So let's clean solution, close this. Now, coming to our dialogues, process KB dialog, and let's see where we need to call our function app. So this is the place where we got the absolute URL. Next, that uploads the document to our blob storage. So I believe we need to call it here. Yeah, let's do that. So I written this particular statement task.run. So what it will do, it will not wait for this API call to get completed. It will just send the dialog, and behind the scene, it will index the document by calling my function app. So I'll just have to get the function URL over here. So indexing function endpoint, let's put that under secrets.json. Indexing function endpoint. So that's my endpoint. Let's double check this name. Go to process KB dialog. All right. Configuration, well, I don't have it here. Let's add the I configuration. Well, I should have done this operation in bot helper. I think let's do that over there. Wait, bot helper. I do not have bot helper. Just a second. Okay, I do not have it. Let's add that. Run indexing process. This takes the input as step context dot context activity from AD object ID. So that's correct. Let's generate the method. And over here, we'll call our API. So it requires AD object ID as the container name. And here we can add that I configuration. Well, it's not here, but we can add it here. Better, we can do it like this. So indexing function endpoint. That's how I'm going to do. And over here, let's get that indexing function endpoint. And here it will be indexing function endpoint. That's all. What is the issue? Because this call is not awaited, execution of the current method continues before the call is completed. That is what we wanted. Yeah. Coming back here. So this is done. To test this out, we need a separate file for this purpose. Or I can just upload a new file. That will be much better. Then I'll have same chunk twice. Let's test this out. Okay, we do have some errors. Okay. Bot helper is not part of this. Let's send bot helper. Okay, this was expected. Form recognizer helper. We need to add it here as well. Let's run again and see if there is any more errors. Okay, we need document analysis client as well. Well, the best way would be to divide both the service classes, one for function app, one for your bot application, so that you don't unnecessary initialize services. Okay, so I'll go to program.cs. I'll just copy this and go to bot program.cs. That is builder.configuration. And I need form recognizer endpoint and form recognizer key. So let's copy them. Secrets. Let's try again. Now it should not ask me for the search helper as well. Well, thankful it did not ask me. All right, so let's say hi. Perfect. Let's say if it remembers that we connected to ChatGPT. Perfect. Next is uploading the attachment. Document 1. This will be renamed to doc4, document 14. From here it got completed. Okay, we got the old issue back. Clean solution. Start debugging. Close all the CLI. Let's upload it again. The name is now document 15. Okay, now it's stopping by. Click on continue. I'm just checking if I'm getting request here in my function app. Yes, I am getting the request. That is completed. And here also it's done. Going back to the Azure portal. Now it will be 4 documents, I guess. 2 from previous, 2 from now. There it is. See? Document 1.5, document 1.3, 1.5 and 1.3. So this seems to be working perfectly fine. Now the final piece which is pending is asking questions from it. Let's stop debugging. I'll go to the main dialog and where we ask question and send to ChatGPT. This is the place. Get messages. No. Create conversation, send ChatGPT response. So this is the place. So let's try to modify that now. To get the answers from there, I need to first verify whether the index is present or not, and how we'll do that. We can do it using the program.cs. So this is how we do it. So I'll copy this same thing to our bot application as well. Builder.configuration. So I'm just creating the search index client in my bot application. This we have done in our function app, but I need to check. I need to create in bot application as well to check if the index is created or not. Okay, so I also need Azure Search Endpoint and Azure Search API key. These two. Go to my secrets. Coming back to main dialog, let's add search index client. Well, I could do in search helper as well, but this will be just a straightforward condition. Next. Here I'll check the condition. If await search index client dot get index async, and the index name is step context dot context. There it is. If it is not null, I'll check that. If it is not null, then I'll have to get the response from my index, else I'll have to get it from ChatGPT. So I'll say to do get response from Azure OpenAI with data. Else get it normally from ChatGPT. All right. Okay, so let's implement this piece now.